Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the final event of our year here. So, if you saw the post online, we'll be having a short but fun night, inshallah. So we're going to start with a 30-minute lecture by our imam. Then we're going to have 1 hour for basketball-ish. Then we're going to take a break for food, and then we're going to come back for Qiyyam. So 8 rakats plus with it, inshallah. And inshallah, you'll enjoy it. Okay.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد النبي الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد. Let me start with this comment that a priest shared that with me. A person of faith in Christianity, he said, "You guys, you have two problems." That's what he said. You guys, you have two problems. We wish a few problems are our problems. Can you guess what in his mind? They said, you guys, you have two problems. You complain, and he said, you know what, it's overwhelming. We didn't have much to do with this. And he said, I wish if your problem is that our problems. First is the parking. He said, you always complain about the parking lot. There's no place to park. It's full. Despite whatever you can extend it, and still they're having issues. Which it's positive things, yes? The positive things. And when you go to their parking lot, it might be empty. There's not much activities in there. And he said the other problem is youth. There's a lot of youth in there. You are a community of 60 to 70% are youth. And some of you, they look at that as a problem. And he said, I wish if your problems, that's our problems. Our youth, they're not coming to our place of worship. I tell them, in fact, the energy that comes in our place of worship, in our mosque, that's behind it, a lot of youth. They are connected to the mosque. Their hearts connected to the mosque. And this is, a sign of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a sign of love, and that's what Muhammad mentioned as one of those 7 kind of people that Allah will grant them a special protection in a day for judgment, where they are going to be under the shade of the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where there is no shade except the shade of a throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as some of them, that رجل تعلق قلبه بالمساجد, a person that his heart attached to the mosque. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among them. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you. You are putting in a heart that to maximize the benefit in the month of Ramadan. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you. Today, let me give an introduction only about this important topic. The actions of the heart. Most of the time we're talking about the action of the body. But action of the body comes after the action of the heart. As Ibn Qiyyam rahimahullah mentioned, قد يبلغ العبد, the person might reach the level that be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala بقلبه لا ببدنه, by his heart before his body. So we should work in our heart. And as there are actions that count by our body, there are other actions count by our heart. In fact, the action of the body are useless if they are not connected with the action of the heart. Action with no intention is useless. And actually sometimes will be against you. Ana وغثاء. There's no point. And you might actually be questioned about that action, if not sincere or has no intention or just was a waste of time. But intention with no action is still be rewarded. It still be count. So we should work in our intention. So when I said action of the heart, that is merely the intention. It's beautiful hadith when the Prophet ﷺ said, من هم بحسنة فلم يعملها كتبت له حسنة. If you had the deep thought to do a good deed and you have not done it because you couldn't make it, that still count for you as one reward. And if you have done it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will write for you 10 hasana and He will multiply it more and more. But the amazing part, this part, if you have a deep thought to do bad deeds, and then you give up, and then you didn't, because of fear of Allah or any other reason, what's the result? What's the consequences of that? What do you think? You're going to be rewarded. You get one reward. Having a deep thought to do something wrong. من هم بسيئة فلم يعملها كتبت له حسنة. But if you have done it, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will write for you one bad deed. If you ask Allah forgiveness, that will be erased and replaced with one good deed. So we are dealing with the most generous one. Now if somebody asks, what's the action of the heart? The action of the heart are 5. مراتب النية وأقسام النية 5. The actions of the heart are 5. The levels are 5 levels. So the lowest one is called hajis, then khatir, then hadith al-nafs, then ham, then azm. 5 in that sequence. Hajis, like a thought that comes to you, visiting you, and not that constant. Once you thought to do something, and just an idea came to your mind. Khatir, that's more often that visiting you, that a thought is there, but it has different sources. It might be good and bad, but no action that came out of it. And there is another one called hadith al-nafs. There are slight difference between, but hadith al-nafs is a little bit higher than just, khatir. So that thought stayed there to the point that you are debating with yourself. You are talking to yourself. Never happened to you that sometimes you're sitting and you talk to yourself? To that hadith al-nafs. Now the question, is any accountability, is any reward or any sin of having these? Not at all. The Prophet ﷺ said, رَفَعَ اللَّهُ عَنْ أُمَّتِي مَا حَدَّثَتْ بِهِ نَفْسَهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala left the blame of my ummah, whatever that had hadith al-nafs, the debate that inside their soul, themselves. مَا لَمْ تَقُلْ, as long as you have not produced any action. So if hadith al-nafs that's not count, then what's below is not count. You get the point? So hajis, say with me, hajis, khatir, hadith al-nafs. These 3, there is no accountability, there's no question. So you don't have to worry. Because somebody will say, you know what, I have doubt, I have thought, I have this. Maybe Allah will question me about it. Even sometimes bad thought about Allah, you don't have to worry about that. It doesn't mean that you sleep with it and it's fine. No, you have to clear it, but you don't have to worry about it. There's no question about it. And then the 4th one, al-ham. I just mentioned the hadith could be hamma bihasana or hamma bisayyi'ah. Okay, you have a deep thought to do good deed or bad deed. That's where it comes now. Could be a reward or could be accountability in this. You get the point? Okay. And then the last one was azm. Now, not only just a thought, there is an intention that attached with an action. That's, something you go for it. That is count. One time, Sheikh was sitting with one of his students and somebody was at the door. So the student wanted to go and open the door. Somebody is knocking at the door and the student wanted to stand and open the door. The Sheikh said, no, I will do it. And after he came back, he said, my Sheikh, why never let me to do so? Why not let me to help you? The Sheikh asked him, what was your intention? What was your intention? He said, no, somebody's at the door, somebody knocking the door, and I want to open it. But the Sheikh told him, when I was walking, for every step, I made an intention. While I was walking, said, if somebody needs help, I'm going to help. If somebody has an inquiry, I will answer. If somebody needs, can you imagine? The action is only one action. But look how many rewards he is going to gain. He's multiplying his reward by his intention. There's one of Salihin, he said, إِنِّي أَحْتَسِبُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ نَوْمَتِي قَبْلَ قَوْمَتِي. I count in the sake of Allah my bedtime before my working time. Even my bedtime with just a normal habit and personal need, I still be rewarded? Yes. You could turn all your action as an action of worship, as a ibadah. You see our actions, it's between ada and ibadah. It's an act of worship or a habit. But even the habit and all what you are doing, it could be turned to be an action of worship by your intention. So why you are eating? If you have a good cause for that, you might be rewarded. Why you are drinking, why you are helping your neighbor, why you are driving, why you are walking, why you are sleeping. So you could be rewarded 24/7. Doing nothing except action of the heart. You're working on your intention. So by your intention, you could turn what is just a habit to be an act of worship. You're studying math or physics or chemistry, or you are doing the normal job, or even you're exercising in a gym. You're doing like your activities. And you could turn all of these activities as an act of worship. You are going to be rewarded as if you are in ibadah, as if you are in salah. Now you say, how many of those actions I lost? How many of the reward that I missed? So we need to understand the action of the heart. We need to work in our heart. So our time will be in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. My prayer, my sacrifice, my life, my death for Allah, the Lord of mankind. So all of that for Allah. What you are doing for Allah. Do not say, I'm just studying to get my certificate, my degree, and that's it. Yes, if you don't have the intention, you are going to miss it. But sit with yourself and ask yourself always why I'm doing what I'm doing. That will help you to maintain the action, and at the same time you multiply the reward. When you are coming to the masjid, you might come for a prayer. But there's one scholar wrote a book about the 60 different intentions for the person coming to the mosque. So I'm not just coming to the mosque to pray. There's many other things, but if I don't have that in my heart, I might miss the reward that's behind those actions. I'll give you just an example about Rasulullah, what he said, Man ghada ila al-masjid aw rah. Whomever came to the mosque, morning or evening, غدا المسجد راح لا يريد إلا يتعلم خيرا أو يعلم خيرا. He wants to teach something or to learn something. He will go back with a complete reward of Hajj. Can you imagine? You know what's a complete reward of Hajj? A great forgiveness. He will go back as the day he was born. Because that's a reward of Hajj. رجع كيوم ولدته أمه. So you tell yourself how many times that I go, but I didn't have that intention. Or even I go, but there is short talk, I missed that. And if I set for that intention, I might be rewarded that. Sometimes you do many good deeds and ask Allah forgiveness, but you missed something even simple because you missed that action of the heart. The famous hadith that we all know about the story of a man, they called him Muhajir Ummi Qais, a person among the Sahaba, and he went to Medina among the immigrants. And you know the reward of hijrah is a great forgiveness. So when somebody will make the hijrah, as Rasulullah mentioned, that all his sins will be forgiven. But that person was not in his heart just to do hijrah. He mixed it with the other worldly benefit. He wanted to marry a lady in Medina, her name Qais. You see, his intention not purely for the sake of Allah, it's mixed. When the Prophet ﷺ heard about that, he was very upset, and he stood up and he said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. Indeed, action is according to the intention. And you are going to gain whatever you intended. So whatever you intended, that's your gain. If you don't have a pure intention, you're not going to get it. There's one person was praying and he's making perfect salah, and somebody talking behind said, MashaAllah, MashaAllah, it's beautiful salah, how was he praying? So he finished salah and said, Assalamu alaikum, and he turned his face and he said, وَصَائِمٌ أَيْضًا, I'm fasting too. So it's not only you being surprised I'm praying, but even I'm fasting too. Why is that? You lost the reward. You should do that in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You shouldn't have like any kind of riyah. So the Prophet said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى الدُّنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا أَوْ امْرَأَةٍ يَنْكِحُهَا فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. If that person just immigrated just to gain dunya or to marry a lady, he might just get that benefit and that reward, but he's not going to seek the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because his action was not for the sake of Allah. So it might be rejected. In order that your deed will be accepted, it has to have minimum two conditions: the correct intention and correct action. So you have to have correct intention and you have to have correct action in order you get to gain the acceptance. If somebody has a pure intention but his action was not good, even that one is not the right way, so my action be rejected. And if somebody has the correct action but doesn't have the right intention as well, it might be not acceptable. Have you heard about a person, his name Qazman? He was fighting with the Prophet ﷺ. He was fighting the enemies of Allah in the group of the Prophet ﷺ. And people start praising him, and they said he died in the sake of Allah, and how he was a strong person, was courageous, and all of that. So the Prophet ﷺ told them, وَمَا أَدْرَاكُمْ إِنَّهُ مِنْ أَهْلِ النَّارِ. How do you know that? He might be among the people of hellfire. How do you know that? You don't know. Maybe he was not in his intention to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّهُ كَانَ يُقَاتِلُ حَمِيًّا. He was fighting for other reasons. So we need to purify our intention and care about that and trying our best just to make it only and solely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, the intention is matter, and the scholars, when they talk about fiqh, they made 5 main max, the operation maximum in fiqh, and one of the main one is al-umur bimaqasidiha. When the scholars talk about hadith in the Mal'amal Biniyat, some of them, they said there are 4 hadith that our religion is going around or surrounding, those 4 hadith. So they count in the Mal'amal Biniyat as 1/3, 1/4, 1/4. Other scholars, they said no, maybe 1/3. because they count the deeds from the heart and from the tongue and from, the body. But to be honest, it's a half of the religion. It's because the inner and the outer actions, the action of the heart and the action of the body. Because the tongue is part of the action of the body. And not only half, the most important half. The other half that is less important. Yes, half and half, but it's less important because the second half is dependent on this first half. The point of today's talk, just to highlight the importance of the intention and that to keep it in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know the place of the intention that's in the heart. Is that right? And what's a heart in Arabic? Qalb. And why is named qalb? Because keep flipping. Qalb. I flip it, qalabtuha. Flipped. And that's why the intention is changing. That's why we need to keep track on our intention. One of Salihin said, ما عالجت شيئا أشد علي من نيتي. There's nothing that hard for me to keep on a track harder than the intention. It couldn't find something that harder than the intention. It's very hard to keep it. You might start the action in a good intention, but then slowly and slowly, because of praise of people, because of nafs, because other things, it might change. So we need always to ask ourselves why I'm doing what I'm doing. We ask ourselves what our intention, and we need to discuss that. Before we start any action, we have to put that in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and remind each other about that. It's a huge topic, and actually I gave a course with 40 hours minimum about the intention. And a lot of students, like until now, they always, when they talk, they bring it back. They talk about this. They said that's one of the things we benefit from it a lot. So, inshallah, we open just the door for you to highlight the importance of having pure intention and to direct it in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purify for us our intention and make it only and solely for Him. Ameen. Now, if you have any questions, that will be your time. And we'll go from there. It doesn't have to be related to this talk. Any questions that come to your mind? How many minutes we have? 5, 10 minutes? Okay. Bismillah. You want to start? Yes. Yes. So, first of all, we have to have the knowledge and understand exactly what intention means. Okay, that's the first of all that matters. So the knowledge will equip you with many tools that will give you kind of control for your intention, and also being in the right company, being right with the right preacher or teacher or colleague. Those ones, they remind you about that your intention. So these very simple advice that you learn more about it. So when more you learn about it, that you can keep it with you, and at the same time be in a right company that's always remind you about that. Yes. Oh yes, of course. That's a challenge actually to keep the same intention, But again, you should break it down. Why I'm doing this, so that will motivate you when you break it down and all of those in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you could multiply the intention. And sometimes you do one action, but you rewarded multiple rewards for each intention. And as they said, you catch 10 birds with one stone. So how that's happen? Because multiplying your intention. Yes. Okay, so actually, Riyah, with showing off and doing to please others, the three levels, three ways. To do the action for the sake of people, that's completely wrong, and that's Riyah. To do the action for the sake of Allah and the people, which you mix the intention, and that's another Riyah, another level. And to leave the action for the sake of people. So some people, they are afraid people praising them or afraid from other things, so they leave doing the action for the sake of people. That's also Riyah. So should do and done in the sake of Allah. Not only just we do in the sake of Allah, even we don't in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if somebody said, you know what, I'm afraid that my heart to change, so I don't want to lead the prayer. And he's the most qualified one. You cannot do that. You cannot do that because you're afraid from this, and then you prevent yourself and the ummah from something good. So it's not because of you are scared that you might be under the riyah, then you leave the good deed because of that. You work on yourself, but do not leave the good deed. Yes, brother. So when I say multiple, that should not be contradicted. Okay, we're all fulfilled in the same ways. But when it's contradicted or it's kind of, then well, this is the dangerous part. Okay, so we cannot do for deen and dunya like something like a hijrah. Okay, a prayer should be absolute for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You cannot do it for Allah and others. Okay. So in some actions, if you do it for others, you might not be counted as a sin, but you miss the reward of it. Okay, so we do for people's sake, many other things, but if you don't have a pure intention that first and foremost I'm pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then I might lose the reward of that. And that's here the tricky part. We have to always tell ourselves and connect it somehow with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh, that's fine. If you do the good deed, and then as a result, people start praising. That's called ajilu bushra al-mu'min. This is some of the reward that you receive it earlier. So it does not invalidate your action because your intention is still purely in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, you should stay away from that because that might lead to your intention to change. That's why there's advice from the Rasul for those that are afraid that their intention change, that they throw dust on the eyes of people, which means stay away from that. حط التراب في وجوه المادحين. Because that it might change your intention. We are human, we're weak. Somebody loves people to stand for him, to respect him. That could change your intention. Subhanallah. The Prophet said, "Man ahabba an yatamathal lahu an-nas bil-qiyam fatabahu maq'ada min an-nar." If the person that loves people praising and standing for him, then he might reserve his place in hellfire. So we have to watch our intention. There's one of the shuyukh, they missed him after the lecture, and his family, they were looking for him, couldn't find him. And then finally they found him in the washroom, cleaning with his pure hands. They told him why. He said, "Because you know what, I was afraid my intention will attack me. Because people start praising and nice, and almost they carrying him with the car. How they were happy." He said, no, I cannot do that. So he went, to the washroom to kind of give a lesson to himself, to keep himself down, not start, having kind of pride or kind of a change, which is very dangerous. Yes. Of course, it's not only sometimes. It was mentioned the hadith al-riya shirk. Al-riya shirk. That's a hadith. وَمَنْ عَمِلَ عَمَلًا رَأَ فِي غَيْرِ فَقَدْ أَشْرَكَ. So if you do an action and you mix in your intention that you please Allah and others, were not mainly seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pleasure, yes, that is shirk. However, when you read the term shirk in some ayat and some ahadith, do not always take it literally. Okay? هناك كفر دون كفر وشرك دون شرك وفسوق دون فسوق. So sometimes the term goes like, as a shirk, but it's not shirk. Like this one, for example. And the other hadith, سباب المسلم فسوق وقتاله كفر. If you curse a Muslim, then that's a lead to fusuq. And if you fight him, or you kill him, that's a kufr. But Allah never mentioned that those they are fighting, even they are Muslims, they are kuffar. He named them mu'mineen. وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. So he never named them kuffar. So we have to understand this. Kufrun duna kufr. Sometimes the Prophet ﷺ used the word kufr, but he never meant kufr. As he mentioned, أُرِيتُ النَّارَ فَإِذَا أَكْثَرُ أَهْلِهَا النِّسَاءُ يَكْفُرْنَ قِيلَ يَكْفُرْنَ بِاللَّهِ قال لا يكفرن العشير لو أحسنت إلى إحداهن الدهر كله قالت ما رأيت منك خيرا قط. So we have to be careful on those terms. So sometimes the terms comes with this way as kufr, as shirk, as fusuq, but not really. It's a real kufr and fusuq and shirk. For example, the hadith, من حرف بغير الله فقد أشرك. If you swear by somebody rather than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you commit a shirk. So how you understand these terms? Any of those terms that's used, that terms and not really meant to be that terms, that's count as a major sin. So when it says riya'u shirk, it meant in this, that's a major sin. It's not the real shirk. When mention sibab al-muslim fusuq, that's a major sin. So you took it for this way. The only group that's like really a group went astray, where they interpretate those terms as it is, that's called khawarij. So يكفرون الإنسان بذنب يصيبه. When a person commits a sin, for them is a kafir, because they took these terms literally, which not meant to be like this. It's metaphorically. Okay. Yeah. Am I clear? Okay. So for example, a mu'min could commit zina. Yeah, it could happen. The Prophet ﷺ, when asked about that, he could have a fornication, and that's a major sin. But in other hadith, لا يزني المؤمن وهو يزني ولا يزني المؤمن إذ يزني وهو مؤمن. He's not a believer when he committed, zina. Oh, what do you mean? He's out of Islam? No, he's not out of Islam. It's a major sin, but it's not out of Islam. Okay? Yes. So here there's no contradiction. Loving Allah and loving the person, that's not contradiction. If that person deserves to be loved because he's a good person, in reality. So nothing wrong to that. Actually, that goes as a sign of love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you don't have to worry, about that. So the love of each other, that will bring the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the love of Allah, it's a result, that love when you love each other. So you don't have to worry about that, because this is not a contradiction, However, do not do the opposite. من التمس رضا الناس بسخط الله سخط الله عنه وأسخط عنه الناس. If you seek to please people, regardless that Allah pleased or not, then Allah will be displeased and people will be displeased as well. So you lose both. You are not getting anything. Last question. Yes, please. There's a dua to keep your intention. There are many du'as that, it could be, but the best one you're asking the hidayah, because hidayah is including all of that, and you ask Allah, Allahumma ya muwaffiq ahl al-khayr ila al-khayr wa a'anhum alayhi wafiqna ya mawlana ila kulli khayr wa a'inna alayhi. Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'ah wa arina al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinabah. So there is a dua of the hidayah. That's all dua of hidayah. Allahumma rabba Jibreel wa Mikael. That's dua as well. That will help you to seek guidance and at the same time to keep your intention and the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I hope that will answer your question. But generally speaking, that's making dua, make it simple. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whatever comes into your heart, that's its matter. But it's a beautiful question. Let's search about it. I'm sure the Prophet advised something like that, about something related to the heart, and keep it to the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have no doubt that it could be something there. Okay, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you, and may Allah bless your night and reward you more than what you expect, and grant the reward of the night in the record of each one of us. Ameen. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.